Hello and welcome back to my channel. It's Tina. And today I am giving you the first half of my reading vlog for all of the books that I read for the Goodreads Choice Awards long list. So I was going to put this all together in one vlog, but as you know, there were 20 books on the long list. And if I wanted to make this a reading vlog, it would have been about 2 hours, I think. So I've decided to split this up into two. And it's going to look a little different for the first one because I had finished, I want to say 9 of the books before I started this challenge. And my reviews for that one are from the podcast by and large. So you're going to see me having some conversations on the podcast. So it's not the typical talking to camera, but I am on camera and you'll see what I mean in a moment here. So I'm going to review the first 9 in this vlog here. Shortly thereafter, I'm going to be releasing a second reading vlog where I'm reading through all of the ones that I had not yet read before the list was announced. So that's going to be another 11 books, and that is more of a live vlog where I'm reading through them. Then I'm going to do a third video because I have become obsessed with this project and spent way too much time on it, but I must prevail. I'm in the final stretch, baby. I read all of them, and in this moment, I know what I think, but you don't know yet. You know what I mean? So maybe you know. Listen, okay. We're going to make the videos. It's going to be great. I will also put out a final ranking video for those that just kind of want my quick thoughts. But here we go. Let's get into the first book that I read this year that's on the long list, and that's going to be It's Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney. And the cover I'm holding, can you see the holographic letters? It's from Book of the Month. It's really nice looking, and I swear a part of the reason why I grabbed this originally is because the cover is so nice, and I love the colors. I love that it's holographic font. Not usually a reason to pick something up, but not the worst reason ever. And I do like this author. I've read her several times before. This is about an author named Grady Green. He is having the worst, best day of his life. Because in the beginning of the book, it opens and he finds out he's just made the New York Times bestseller list. He's so excited, immediately calls his wife to tell her the good news. While they're on the phone, he hears her slam on the brakes, get out of the car, and then nothing. And that's it. She's not there. So he obviously goes to figure out where she is, what happened to her. And they eventually find her car by a cliff's edge. The headlights are on, the door is open, her phone is still there, but his wife has disappeared. Cut to a year later. So you literally don't find out anything for a year. And he, again, is an author and he has to make a living. He's on contract and this and that. And it turns out his agent has this cabin in Scotland and is like, look, go there. I know being here is too hard for you. Go to Scotland, right? So he does, even though he's like still consumed with grief and can't sleep and he's having these issues. And then when he gets to Scotland, he sees something that feels a little crazy. He sees a woman who looks exactly like his missing wife. And that's all I'll tell you. This book hooked me from the beginning. I listened to the audio and it was so good on audio. I thought the production of the audiobook was fantastic. You hear some of the environmental sounds, like you hear the water, you hear the phone ringing. And I feel like they really did a good job immersing you in the setting. And speaking of setting, you know I love books set in Scotland. And this one was excellent. It's set in this remote cabin there, and you're really sort of feeling claustrophobic alongside of him. It's very much an in his head type read. And in the beginning, it's pretty straightforward because, like I said, you get this, missing person story and it jumps right into that. And then when he gets to Scotland, it sort of spirals into this psychological maze. I couldn't figure out what we were getting. Is it ghosts? Is it something else? Is it mental illness? Is someone messing with him? Is it all of the above? Is he drinking too much? And he is a deeply flawed character. He's unreliable. But at the same time, I didn't hate him. I was feeling for this guy because I'm like, I don't know what's going on either, man. You tell me. This sounds wild. He's also living in this cabin where another author used to live. And I loved that element because he is uncovering clues about what happened in this cabin previously. And I liked that. It's just an author's not behaving badly, but a behind the scenes in being an author story. And I love my books about authors. So it had that locked room mystery feel because you're on this very remote island. You're also getting some of the local lore, which I appreciated. You're hearing about like the name of the island. Why is this book? And, why is it called Beautiful Ugly? You do find that out. And I couldn't figure it out.
And I also could not put this book down until I was finished. I remember I read this in January. I was like glued to my headphones trying to figure it out. This is a twisty thriller with, again, unreliable narration. It is classic Alice Feeney, but I do think this is one of her better works. Because I'm a little bit hit or miss with this author. I would say an author comp is Sarah Pinborough. I really like her writing. So if you like Sarah Pinborough, who I've recently brought to the show, you will like this one. Now, the ending, you'll want to talk with somebody about it. So feel free to message me. Not that I remember what happened, because it was, 5 months ago at this point. I do remember elements, and I had so many theories. So if you want someone to float your theories to as you read this, feel free, because I had some really good ones. And I'm like, wow, I wish this is actually what was happening, because I want a book about this. It's too vague. But anyway, I had a great time reading this one, and I do highly recommend it.
Then we've got The Crash by Freida McFadden.
Hi, gang. It's me in present day, and you are not getting a podcast review of The Crash by Freida McFadden because I reviewed this back when we weren't doing video. For some reason, there's no video of it, but I'll tell you what I thought of it. The Crash was actually pretty good. Now, the main character is winning no awards for being smart because she is 8 months pregnant, alone, and desperately wants to put her crumbling life in the rearview mirror. So there's a blizzard and she hits the road. She doesn't realize there's going to be a blizzard, but like, come on, babe. Anyway, she gets stranded in Maine with a dead car, and then she also broke her ankle. And a tow truck driver comes and finds her, and she gets rescued because they're like, my wife is a nurse and you're welcome to come stay with us until the snow goes away. And she agrees to it. Big mistake. I enjoyed this. It is more of a psychological thriller, I think, than some other of her books. Some of the characters were making decisions that were very questionable. Does she play on women's weaknesses and sort of exaggerate everything? Yes, of course. She loves to do that. But I still like this a lot. Well, I don't know if I'd say I like this a lot. I still think that I'm glad that I read it. I think it's worthy. She also created a bad guy, if you will, that I sort of felt for. And I thought that was interesting. I do think this one is great for winter, and it goes well with my winter outfit today and the snow outside. So if that's kind of your thing, I'm not mad that I read it. It was a fast read. I'm giving it 3.5. It's falling sort of toward the middle end of my ranking for this, but overall, definitely not the worst Freida McFadden I've read. And I think it's fine. I think it's a good time. I don't know. I read it a long time ago, but do with that what you will.
Thoughts on The Missing Half by Ashley Flowers.
I am really excited that earlier you brought a book coming out in May, and I'm bringing a book that comes out in May as well. It is The Missing Half by Ashley Flowers with Alex Keister. And I wanted to make sure to call out because I think this was written, it's like dually written, but like Ashley Flowers' name is huge because she is the podcast host of Crime Junkie, so she's massively popular. But I wanted to be sure to like shout out the co-writer as well. The Missing Half is about Nicole Monroe, who is in a rut. She is 24 and lives alone in a dinky apartment in her hometown of Mishawaka, Indiana. She's just gotten a DWI, and she works the same dead-end job she's been working since high school. A job she only has because her boss is a family friend and feels sorry for her. Everyone feels sorry for her over the past 7 years because 7 years ago, her older sister Casey vanished without a trace. And on the night Casey went missing, her car was found over 100 miles from home. The driver's door was open and her purse was untouched and in the seat next to it. And the only really clue was that Jules Connor, another young woman from the same area who disappeared in the same way 2 weeks earlier, and that was it. These two were connected. But there was so little for the police to go on, and both of their cases eventually go cold. And Nick wants nothing more than to move on. But she's having a hard time doing that. And then one day, Jules' sister, Jenna, walks into her life and offers Nick something she hasn't felt in a long time, which is hope. And basically, this book follows these two women who both have had sisters who went missing as they try and figure out where the heck are they, because their cases weren't ever really solved. And so the two take it upon themselves to try and figure things out. Now, I loved this book, and as it goes with thrillers, you might be a better detective than me, but I in no way saw this coming. Our main character is a hot mess, and she's kind of annoying, but almost in like a little sister way that you just want her to get her shit together. And I think that's by design because, yeah, her sister disappeared and she really is stunted by that. She works at this place that's kind of this off brand Chuck E. Cheese, which I thought was kind of funny, actually. And I enjoyed watching the two women team up because Nick is a younger sister and Jenna was the older sister. And so they sort of form this bond to where it's like surrogate sisters. Something that's, about me, I don't like Nancy Drew. I don't like when they're doing like Scooby-Doo amateur detective work, but it worked here because Jenna, the older sister that, runs into our main character, is very put together type A, has her own theories and just like really has some good, compelling narratives and things that the police didn't catch on to. The audiobook is narrated by Saskia Marleveld, who's one of my favorite narrators. And my gosh, she nails the tone. It's haunted and intense, but like very just grounded. It just really sets the right tone for this thriller. And the two start digging together. And I loved seeing the threads that they were pulling and figuring out the things. And I was right there with them, like in the narrative, figuring it out with them. There is a little bit of, resurrecting the past and talking to people that used to know their sisters. And the ending of this one is so good. I happened to be in office when I finished this. I was doing desk work and I had my AirPods in and I was like, I don't care who's around. I'm opening this because I need to read this last chapter with my eyeballs because I'm like, is this really happening? What's going on? It's a sad story at its core. It's gritty. It sort of reminded me a little bit of Sharp Objects, if you will, by Gillian Flynn, like that grittiness, that small town, but it's a completely satisfying thriller with complicated relationships and a really, really satisfying payoff. If you like dark mysteries with messy, complex main characters, I think you will like this. This book is The Missing Half by Ashley Flowers with Alex Keister.
Then we've got Famous Last Words by Gillian McAllister.
All right. Well, this one that I'm recommending for my latest read, I just finished 10 minutes ago ish. And it is Famous Last Words by Gillian McAllister. I was excited for this one because it's a domestic suspense novel, and I love a good domestic suspense. I just love it. They're similar to psychological thrillers, but often less manipulative, less gritty, and more just a straight up mystery, not cozy, but definitely just more, I don't know, almost lighter, almost a nicer mystery. Anyway, let me get into what it's about. This one is about Camilla, who is a new mom. And it opens with her heading back to work after maternity leave. And she wakes up to find her husband, Luke, missing. And he's just gone, right? And she's like, oh, he must have gone into the office early. And she has this note. And it's kind of this weird note. It looks like he got cut off early, which is the famous last words that we're referencing in the title. And she's trying to figure things out, whatever. She's like more worried about dropping her kid off and being, off of maternity leave. And then breaking news hits. There is this hostage situation in London. She finds out that her husband is not the victim. He is the one holding people hostage. She's like, I'm sorry, what? And has no clue what to do with this information. And in fact, she doesn't believe it. She's like, my husband's this mild-mannered man. He's the one that's always calm. I'm the one that's riddled with anxiety. What do you mean? He is the gunman. And this one I'm going to be very vague about because I have to be, because any more information than that will be spoilers. I can tell you that this is a book told in 4 parts. The initial part is all about the hostage situation, and I was really into it. I was very much on the edge of my seat, like, what would you do? And I think that's what this book does really well is the author brings you into the situation and makes you question, like, what would you do if this man that you loved or this person you loved did this horrible crime? Allegedly, even though you can see him on film doing it. The good part about this was that the other point of view was that of the hostage negotiator. His name is Niall. And so you're getting these dual point of view, the wife who's obviously grieving her husband's actions, and then Niall who is trying to talk him out of, harming anybody. And I will say, in terms of pacing, Act 1, awesome. 2 and 3 was a little bit of a, okay, let's see where we're going here. not boring, just pleasant. Like I was like ready for it to start getting twisty. But I will say it pieced together what happened very well. The characters were compelling. I was really interested in Camilla. I wanted to see what she was going to do. I also enjoy that in this novel, she is a literary agent and her husband is an author. So you're in the world of you're in the literary space, which I always like in a book. I thought all of the characters in this were written with compassion and depth, and I love that. Again, we just did a bonus episode on this for the show where a thriller with main characters that aren't dumb. This I think would fall under that. She's not dumb. She's somebody to root for, and it just really made me think about marriage and about identity and like again, what would you do in this situation? You know, I like to comp books. If you liked this, you might like that. This one, it reminded me of The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave. So if you liked that novel, this one will definitely be in your wheelhouse. I happen to really like that. This one has that same blend of domestic suspense with high emotion. And while I was ready for it to land the plane a little bit sooner, I was very invested to see how it all ended. I did the audiobook for this one. I sort of did a tandem read. I thought the narration was really done well. It's British narration, and I enjoyed it very much. I'd give it 4 stars. I've never read this author, but I would definitely pick her up again. This one is Famous Last Words by Gillian McAllister.
Thoughts on The Ghostwriter by Julie Clark?
This one was good on audio too. My next book that I'm bringing is The Ghostwriter by Julie Clark. This one's about the Taylor family, and it takes place, part of this book takes place in June 1975, leading up to a terrible night when 2 teenage siblings are found dead in their own home. The only surviving sibling, Vincent, never shakes the whispers and accusations that he was the one who killed them. It is now decades later, and the legend only grows as his career as a horror writer skyrockets. Then you have ghostwriter Olivia Dumont, who spent her entire professional life hiding the fact that she is actually Olivia Taylor, the only child of Vincent Taylor. She has run into money troubles. She's on the brink of financial ruin, and she gets this job offer to ghostwrite her father's last book. All the publisher and all her employer knows that he, Vincent Taylor, specifically asked for her, and she's like, dang it, they don't know that he is my dad. And she's not quite sure why he is having her do this. And you do find out right away what's going on. But it's not a horror novel that he wants her to ghostwrite. It is his memoir. And after 50 years of silence, Vincent Taylor is finally ready to talk about what really happened that night in 1975. I love Julie Clark. I am a Julie Clark stan. I've read both of her other... Oh, no, that's not true. She has more books. I've only read 2 of her books. The Last Flight's my favorite. Also really enjoyed The Lies I Tell. This one is right up there. It is one that has that classic literary suspense that I really enjoy. This is not a popcorn thriller. This is much more tightly written, and it's a slow burn mystery with great atmosphere that pulls you in slowly. You're not going to get a ripper in this one. You're like, okay, let me figure this out. You're setting this scene. You're getting to know Olivia. You're getting to know Vincent. What I love is that this is not just told straight in terms of like, oh, we're not just following Olivia's journey the whole time. We're getting flashbacks. And some of the flashbacks that we are getting are that of the deceased. So you hear from Poppy, which is the sister that died. You hear from other people that were around at the time. So you as a reader are brought in on this. You know things that Olivia doesn't, right? And so in present day, she's trying to figure them out. You as a reader then get to see what actually happened. I thought the setup was really unique, and I haven't read things that do that quite in the same way in a while. You are also, along with Olivia, trying to figure out what happened. Is it Vincent? Is it not? What's going on? And it had almost this nostalgic sort of summer camp vibes, even though there's no summer camp in it. But it has this, I don't know, you're feeling that nostalgia in it. And it's definitely set during the summer. And it's got a nice blend of darker elements and family secrets and long held trauma. This is so well written, and you can tell right away that you are in good hands. The voice is strong. She's not pulling any cheap tricks. It doesn't feel like a cheater brand, meaning I don't feel like she borrowed anything from any other books. It just felt realistic. I also think Vincent is this very fascinating character throughout, because you know him in present day, you know he's not perfect, you know who he was as a father, but then you also come to meet him when he was a teenager, and it was fascinating. And she like gave this man a personality, and I love that. He's very much a three-dimensional character. Same with Olivia. If you like books about writers, you'll like this. If you like books that take you behind the scenes of how memoirs are shaped, you'll like this, because you're literally like in the room with them as they're like shutting down some chapters and telling her she has to do other things. And the book that this reminded me of is The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. And I say that as a compliment. Throughout, Olivia's trying to figure out what really happened, and she's trying to like triangulate her sources, but it's harder than it looks. What I appreciate that it's not this like Scooby-Doo. She's not like knocking on doors, like, you know what I mean? She's not like doing crazy things to get the story, but she really is doing a lot of her own boots on the ground research to figure it out. If you like mysteries with depth, if you like books about books or family dramas with long buried secrets, this is definitely worth a read. You could not pry this book out of my cold, dead hands for the last 10% of it. I was like, oh my God, I was like chopping random vegetables because I'm like, I need to keep busy because I got to figure out how this ended. It was excellent. That is a Ghostwriter by Julie Clark. I also just noticed I'm holding the cover up really close to the camera, and it's probably not in focus, but these are words from his memoir. She shouldn't have gone. She shouldn't have gone. Like, these are words that are pertinent to the story. I just noticed that. I loved it. God, what a clever cover. Kudos to Julie Clark. You did it.
Thoughts on King of Ashes by S.A. Cosby. This one is a tandem review between me and my podcast co-host, Hannah. This was our community read for the month of June. So when we do community read reviews on the podcast, we share our thoughts together. But here are my thoughts on that book.
Let's talk about our joint latest read.
Yes, I am so excited to talk about this one.
It is King of Ashes by S.A. Cosby. You know, S.A. Cosby is a BTE favorite author. I have loved him. I discovered him on Blacktop Wasteland. That's the first one I read, and I've been reading his books in order ever since. The only one I have not read is his debut, which is My Darkest Prayer. But I will tell you first what this is about, and then we can share what we thought about it. This
Perfect.
one is about Roman Carruthers, who is a oldest brother. He's got a younger brother and younger sister, and he gets summoned home after his father's car accident. And when he gets there, he finds that his youngest brother, Dante, is in debt to a dangerous criminal, and that his sister, Nevaeh, is exhausted from holding the family business together. And you find out the business that they own is a crematorium. They are in what the author describes as a rundown Central Virginia town of Jefferson Run. And it's not uncommon for them to be very familiar with death. They see it every day in the business that they are in. But mortality draws even closer when it becomes clear that the crash that landed their father in a coma was no accident, and that Dante's recklessness has placed them all in real danger. Roman is this financial whiz. He is living his life in Atlanta. He's living the high life, and his big talent is making his clients rich. And he's a money manager and an advisor. And then, through that job, he also gets rich himself. So he does have money to help bail his brother out, but the people that he got involved with are real gangsters, if you will. And something really bad happens. And so Roman realizes that they are in actual real danger, that typical money might not get them out of. And so he is going to use his skill set as a money manager to try and save his brother, save his sister, and the family business. And while all of that's going on, you also find out that their family, the Carruthers family, has sort of been mired in this scandal. Their mother disappeared years ago, and everybody is very suspicious as to what happened to her. So you've got these two coinciding stories going on, and the last sentence says, everything burns. So I know you just finished this as well.
Yes.
What do you think?
I'm so glad that we both just finished this too in the last couple of days. I mean, you just came off of this one. I ended up really, really liking this one. And I'm so glad, because I would say the first 3/4 of it, I was liking it. I was enjoying it.
Yeah.
But I was also like, this is definitely, it's fine. It's fine. And then the last quarter happened, and it made the book for me.
Yeah.
And as you know, that is almost never the case for me with books like this specifically.
True.
Although this isn't a thriller. I mean, is it a thriller? Would you just put it in the thriller camp?
I'm very particular with definitions. I call this crime noir. So it's
Okay.
a crime
I
novel.
love how specific that is.
Dark. It's Southern crime noir, if you want to be very specific. I don't know that I didn't make that up, but I think that's what I've heard him describe it as. We've seen him talk before 2 years ago when his previous book came out, and fascinating to hear about his process, but that's what I would categorize this as, but not a thriller.
Yeah, good to know, because this definitely felt different to me. And it wasn't like that crazy popcorn, you get your twist in the first third, your twist in the last half kind of a thing. This was a slow burn, pun intended. And I ended up really loving it. I obviously can't talk about what happened at the end, but one of the things that I was feeling frustrated about throughout the book, there was kind of this one thread that kept getting woven in throughout the story that I was like, this feels like the book is trying to do too much. I don't know why this thread keeps getting brought in, because it felt so jarring almost. I was like, no, I want to get back to the story that we were just talking about. And then at the end, you're like, okay, Cosby, fine. You did that really well.
Yeah.
I see what you were doing, and it was intentional, and it was really smart. So
are you talking about, I don't think this is a spoiler to ask, there's the big thing that's happening, right, is that the brother is in bad with these criminals. Correct. And then also that their mom disappeared. It's those two concurrent stories.
Two concurring storylines, and one of them felt a little bit irrelevant, and it's not.
Yeah, it's not. And I sort of am used to this author, his writing style.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, I could totally get that, because it does take you out a little bit, because he pulls you back for a few pages into 2004 or whatever it was. And so you're like, what? Why am I here? And it does take you out a little bit. But I actually liked that, because I was feeling frustrated by one of the characters in this. I was feeling frustrated by the brother, frankly. We know that from the synopsis. I'm like, he was really making me angry in certain sections. But then when I would get the flashback, I felt very sympathetic toward him. And so I liked that. So just know that they do come together. That was my question too. I'm like, I don't know that this is going to come together. I didn't find this a slow burn for me, but I'm also really, really patient, because I knew that I was in good hands. I'm like, just tell me the story. Yeah. I think where S.A. Cosby shines is his characterization, because he's telling you this effed up story. I mean, I think this is dark. Really dark. I know you didn't think it was as violent as a lot of people did. And I'm like, Hannah.
I was getting caught up on I was getting caught up in the semantics of, I would say that this was a very disturbing and dark book. I would not say that it was graphic. I kept hearing people say that it was graphic, but to me,
interesting.
A lot of the stuff that was happening was, you would hear about this violent thing that happened. There was one scene that was definitely like, okay, yeah, that person just had this happening. But again, you weren't with the person in it. The narrative was not describing, and then the fire was doing X, Y, and Z, and you could hear it wasn't
like the visceral writing that is in the moment of when the violence is happening. It's more of, what happened to them.
This book's content was really dark. I would not necessarily call it overly graphic, which I actually think S.A. Cosby does really well. He can give these dark and disturbing ideas without it being gratuitous. And I think that takes a really good writer.
That's what I was just going to say. I had a tangent there, but yes, I don't think it was gratuitous. It would have felt very inauthentic. Again, we're dealing with gangsters. If it was like, oh, and he slapped me across the face, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you have to go to a certain level of darkness when you're dealing with that type of, like, it's a crime novel, right? We know that is going into it, and we know the type of people, but it's not horror. No. What I think S.A. Cosby does so well, and he said this the last time we saw him when we were at the talk, is his characterization, because he said that when he creates characters, he wants to know. So Roman Carruthers, he wants to know his likes, his dislikes, what he ate for breakfast, his fears, his favorite color. He comes up with all of those things, this entire backstory for every character he has, even if he's not going to use it, just because it like makes this world more rich. And I feel like you can totally see that with this. The three siblings were very different, but I feel like I got a sense for them. There were also some side characters that I would have loved to have known more about, but that would have made it way too long of a book. But for me, I just think, gosh, I love a character-driven book. I especially love when you can get a character-driven story with a ton of plot in this genre. That's like my absolute favorite, which is why I think this author works so well for me.
Next is John Mars's You Killed Me First.
A book that I did not annotate because it's a library book is my latest read. And this is You Killed Me First by John Mars. This book I read so quickly. I barely even registered that I was reading it. I had a day, I think I was doing a lot. I remember crafting at one point, and I just like sped right through it. And the reason I grabbed it is because it was on Kindle Unlimited as a audiobook and an ebook, and I do like their whisper sync. I hate to admit it, but it is pretty cool. So I was like, let me go ahead and pick this up before I cancel my KU again. This is about three women who each have a secret. And the beginning of this is crazy intense. It's set in the beginning in November, and a woman awakens to a nightmare. She has been bound and gagged and lies trapped in the heart of a towering bonfire. And as the smoke thickens, panic sets in, and she's moments away from being engulfed. And how did it come to this? Then the book rewinds 11 months, and you meet the three women that this book centers on. You have Margot, who is a faded TV star, her friend Anna, who also, like, they're neighbors, they live on the street together, and then a new woman named Liv moves in. And the three women soon fabricate the perfect pretense of friendship, but each harbors her own deadly secret. And the newcomer is kind of like not putting up with the established guard, and she starts to poke holes in what seems like this perfect facade. What I like about this is that the chapters were traditional John Mars in that they were very short. You're flying through them. He does do alternating point of view, and I think you get one from everybody. And I have to say, for a while, they were interchangeable. I was like, which one's the rich one? Which one? Who? I kind of conflated two of their storylines, which isn't a bad thing. I just didn't think they were like that distinct to begin with. And then you're also getting these weird chapters that I couldn't make heads or tail of. And it would say, for example, Nevaeh, the first. And I'm like, the first what? And you figure it out eventually. You come to understand what the first means and how it ties into these women. But I have to say, those were the parts I did not like. It was almost like they were unnecessary, and they took me out of the initial mystery of the three women and what's going on. And there's like secrets and lies, and it's all going to come to a head. And then I'm like, why am I getting this small section with these people? And you do, again, as I mentioned, figure out who they are that's talking. And I didn't like it. I didn't like that angle. I think it was cheap and I was kind of dumb, honestly. I have to say, I'm sorry to say that, but I just think it was such a solid story, and it didn't need that. It did not need that. And he loves a long story. This one's probably 375 pages. And I just feel like if you had left out that angle, you could have done this in a more grounded way, that it would have been a really, really solid mystery and thriller. But I just didn't like the angle that he took with this. It won't be for everybody. I was still entertained. I do plan on being a John Mars completionist at some point because I like his stories, and you kind of get sucked into them. They're pretty dark. I also, maybe this is a UK thing, but I can't figure out, what do you mean she's stuck in the middle of a bonfire? What do you mean? I couldn't figure that out. Like in the sticks? Like in the sticks? Under the sticks? Under the house? Like, what do you mean? So I'll leave it there. I was just like, I don't see it, can't see things visually, but I couldn't figure out what they meant by that. Overall, I still liked it. I had a good time with it. I think the opening was really solid, and you do figure out who it is, what's going on. They all have their secrets. And I think if you like domestic suspense novels that read really quickly, that you don't have to like process too heavily, this could work for you. This one is You Killed Me First by John Mars.
My thoughts on The Intruder are coming next.
My latest read was the perfect book at the perfect time for me. It is The Intruder by Freida McFadden. And I am a gal that loves to lightly dunk on Freida McFadden and how many books that she has lightly. Listen, I do like her books, right? I think some of them are sillier and some of them come out too much and this and that, but by and large, I do enjoy much of what I have read from her for what it is. And this one is about so this one's about a storm. And right away, I love a storm. I am a girl that will read a book that has a storm in it pretty much at any time. I just love it. And so this one, the setup is you are following a woman named Casey. She lives in a cabin in the wilderness and a hurricane is coming and it is not built for this type of weather. She knows for sure that her roof is not going to hold during this event. And she's also worried about the shed in the backyard. And so the book opens up with her basically talking to this slumlord that she rents from. She's like, guy, you've got to fix this. It's not going to hold. And he's like, well, we ran out of time. The storm's on its way. Meanwhile, I'm thinking, why didn't we organize this weeks ago? But at any rate, the hurricane is imminent. It's happening. So she's inside, she's making this pasta sauce. And one thing McFadden does is she will repeat things a lot, which is great if you're like listening and doing other things, but she must have talked about the sauce for 10 minutes. I'm like, how complex is this marinara? But anyway, the main character is stirring her marinara and then she sees a light in her shed. And she's like, nobody should be back there. What's going on? The storm is happening. So she decides to investigate. And when she's there, she finds a girl just covered in blood and she has a knife in her hand and she won't tell her who she is, why she's there, what the deal is, and she basically won't talk. Now this book is that's what you're getting, that's what you're being sold on the cover. And I think I've heard very mixed reviews. I enjoyed this, but I didn't really have any expectations going in other than there's a storm. I was like, okay, I know there's a storm coming. That's basically all I needed. This one is a book that has dual point of view, and you're following two characters. You're following a young girl and you're following Casey. And both it's not quick back and forth. Like you're in the chapters for a while. Like you're following each character for a minute. And you come to find out that the young girl is living with a hoarder. So her mom is a hoarder and she's treated really poorly. And that, I will admit, was hard to read. It wasn't, overly graphic or anything, but very, very detailed on how she was neglected. And so for that, I was like, oh gosh, this is terrible, right? You're going back and forth between Casey and then this other point of view and trying to figure out what's going on with these characters. I would say for this one, it's definitely more character driven than a twisty psychological thriller. I am a known terrible detective and I did not see the reveals coming. I saw a couple, pieces I had worked out, but I was surprised with some elements to this. Overall, I enjoyed it. It was a great read. It is available on Kindle Unlimited. It's also available on My Hoopla. So if you have Hoopla, check it over there. And something I appreciated, I don't know if I've noticed this before, in the beginning of this book, McFadden shares her author's note. And I didn't realize this about her books, but what she does is she says, even though my books are thrillers, a genre that typically has dark elements, I do my best to keep them as family friendly as I possibly can. You're not going to come across any graphic scenes of violence or sex. She spells it out, mostly because I know my family members will be reading. And then she goes on to say that she created a list of content warnings for all her thrillers on this website and acknowledges that they sometimes are spoilers, right? But I thought that was really cool that I never put it together, but her books aren't dark generally. Like they're not as dark as they could be or overly graphic, I will say. So a piece of me is wondering, I'm like, I wonder if that's part of why she's so popular, because folks are interested in that thrilling element, but like not too over the top. So just wanted to include that as well. I liked it. I read it over the course of maybe 2 days, over the course of a weekend. So if you are somebody that tends to enjoy Freida's books, pick it up. I recommend it. And that one is The Intruder by Freida McFadden.
Well, thank you so much for following along on this epic vlog. I hope you enjoyed. If you're not already a subscriber of the podcast, Book Talk, etc., it's free. Go ahead and find us wherever you get your podcast. I would love to have you as a new listener. And leave a comment down below if you knew me from the podcast first or if you know me from YouTube first. I would love to hear from you either way. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye.